In this lesson, we're going to finish and refine the sprite animation script. Alright, so in the last lesson we had a little bit of an issue. As we can see here, it's playing all of the animations right from the beginning. And it's not working as it should. So there's something wrong here. Let's take a look at our script. Looking at the script here, and if we go through step by step, during the update function, so that's going to happen every single frame. It's going to call the handle animation function. And it's going to find the animation. So based on the key presses that we have, it should set our current animation to anim drive. And so it's setting this value here. And it should set it to 3. Now, if we're not pressing anything, the current animation should be set to anim idle. And then from there, it should play the animation. Now, here's where the problem is. Under play animation, all it sees is that it should start at the beginning and then continue to go all the way through to the very end and then restart. Now, we have not set any looping animations or even any one-off animations at this point. So let's get started with this. Underneath our time, let's go ahead and create a comment, and I'm going to call this looping animations. So under this, I'm going to say if current anim is equal to anim idle, I want it to do this. So here I need to set the current frame to go between two values, a min and a max value. And what I'm going to use is I'm going to use the mathf.clamp to do that. So I'm going to say current frame equals mathf.clamp, and then we're going to say current frame. So where is it going to start? And then we have a min and a max number. Now with the idle, we don't have a min and a max number. So we're just going to put in idle 2 times. So it's just going to stay on that current frame for right now. Now let's go ahead and say if current anim is equal to anim drive, then we want it to do this. So we're going to say current frame equals mathf.clamp, and then we're going to say current frame. So it's going to start on the current frame that it should, and we're going to say drive min and then drive max. So it should switch between the 2 frames that are in our drive. And then we're going to end with a semicolon. And then from here, what I need it to do is once it reaches the drive max number, it needs to return. So it's a looping animation. So it's going to go from the beginning of the animation to the end. Once it reaches the end, it needs to go back to the beginning. So here I'm going to say if current frame is greater than drive max, I want it to reset the current frame to drive min. So current frame equals drive min. End with a semicolon. So with this set, let's go ahead and hit save. And let's go into Unity and let's see what we have. So we just have some warnings. This is not going to keep us from playing the game. And again, this is just because we haven't set the anim idle or anything like that. We haven't used it. Let's hit save or play. And here you'll see that the player is sitting still. We don't have any animation. Right now we're set to current frame of 17, which is the idle. And the current anim number or ID is set to 0. So everything is working as it should. Now let's press the W key. Notice here that it's switching between the 2 frames in the animation. Now, one thing that I do notice is it's only switching between the 2 frames once. It's not going back and forth. Notice it's sitting on current frame 4. So there's a problem with our code there. Now we're not getting any errors from the editor, but we are getting an error in its behavior. So that means that we have a logic issue. So looking at the anim drive, we have current frame, and it's going to go from the current frame to drive min and drive max. So this is going to be frame 3 and frame 4. So it's going to switch between 3 and 4, 3 and 4, and it's going to appear as if we're looping an animation. Now, if the current frame is greater than drive max, we want it to reset to drive min. So right here is the problem. We're never getting past the value of drive max, which is the value of 4. We're getting to 4, but we're not going past 4. Now, if I were to say if current frame equals drive max, that would work, but what you're going to notice is it's only going to give you the value of 3, because every time it hits 4, that millisecond, it's going to switch back to drive min. So what I wanted to do is say current frame greater than drive max, but here I'm going to say plus 1. So it's going to go from current frame drive min, it's going to play frame 4, and then the millisecond it goes to frame 5, it's going to revert back to frame 3. So now let's save this, go into Unity, and hit play. And now you'll see that it's switching between the two frames. Let me go ahead and go to my game view and hit the spacebar so we can see this a little bit easier. So now if I hit the W key, you'll see that it's switching between the two animations. And then once we release, it stops. Perfect. Now, there are a couple of things that I don't necessarily like about this animation. First and foremost is if I go in reverse, it's not playing the drive animation. If I go forward, it's playing the animation very slowly. Also, if I release the key, the car is still sliding and the animation has stopped. So we've got a little bit of a problem here. So what I want to do instead of basing the if animation on the key press, let's say that we base that off of the current speed of the car. So if we have some velocity, it's going to drive that animation forward. So that makes sense. Also, what was the other issue? The reverse, that'll take care of that as well. So let's go ahead and take a look at this and see how we can do this in code. So let's bring up MonoDevelop, and let's minimize Unity there. Okay, so in our looping animation, we're saying that in the find animation, if we're pressing a button, and let's find it here. Let's see, find animation. If input axis vertical is greater than 0, so if we're pressing a positive value, it's going to set that animation to drive. Let's say that we set a variable called car velocity. If it's greater than something like 0.1, so if we're moving at all, it's going to start that animation. So let's try that now. So I'm just going to fill in this if statement. I'm going to replace it. I'm going to say if car velocity is greater than 0.1f, then we want the current animation to be set to drive. Okay, that seems perfectly fair to me. Now the problem that we have is that we do not have any data set to car velocity, so we need to create that variable. So what I want to do is I want to set the car velocity variable to the current speed, which is in another script. So if I want to access another script from this script, I need to create an instance of the other script. So let's go ahead and put in the name of the script we want to access. So it's going to be player movement. And then we're going to set a variable for this. And usually it's the same name as the script, but with a lowercase letter at the beginning. So it's going to be player movement. And then we're going to set this equal to the to get the component of the object. Now, the sprite animation function where this script lies is in a different location than where the player movement script lies. So we need to give the address to where this player movement script is at. So we're going to say transform.parent, okay, because it's the sprite animation belongs to the player mesh, where the player movement is on the prefab player car, which is the parent to the sprite mesh. So transform.parent.getComponent, and then we're going to less than symbol, and then put in player movement. So what component do we want to get? It's going to be the script, and then we'll do a greater than symbol. So it's basically in brackets. And then open close parentheses, and then end with a semicolon. So all we've done here is we've created an instance for this script of the player movement script. Now what we can do is we can access any variable that we want in the player movement through this variable. So we're just going to simply type in player movement. You can see it showing up there. Or I'm sorry, not player movement, but let's say car velocity equals player movement dot current speed. Okay. Now, as we can see here, car velocity is not showing up that we have here. Let's see, player movement. Let's try to retype that. For some reason, IntelliSense wasn't seeing this. So let's say car velocity equals player movement dot, and it's not showing up current speed. Let's look through our list here. I don't think it's finding our script. So what we're going to do is we're going to go ahead and push through that for just a moment, and we'll find this here in just a moment. We'll figure out exactly what is going on. So I'm going to hit save on this and go into Unity, and it should throw an error. So it's saying that player movement does not contain a definition of current speed. So let's take a look at our player movement script, because I know current speed is there. So let's see. Down. It's in our fixed update, and our current speed is right here. Now the problem that we have here is that current speed is inside of fixed update. So we don't have access to that. So what I want to do is I want to take the current speed, and I'm going to take float off of that. And under here, I'm going to create a new variable, and I'm going to call this public float current speed, and we'll set this to 0 at the very beginning. So 0.0f. Okay. Now if I save that, we go into our sprite animation. Let's go ahead and try to retype that. So car velocity equals player movement dot current speed. And there we go. So now we're set. Let's go ahead and save this, and inside of Unity, okay, everything is gone there except for it's saying car velocity does not exist in current context. And I'm pretty sure that's the exact same thing. We're having an accessibility issue. First of all, we haven't given it a type. So we could give it a type here, or we can come up to the top here, and we could say car velocity. Let's go ahead and just say it right here. Private car velocity. And let's make sure that that is set to, what value are we giving here? A float value. So let's say private float car velocity, end with a semicolon. Save that, and back in Unity, those should disappear. And then now, if we press the W key, you'll see that we're playing, and then it continues to play until the car is stopped. Now, one final issue that we're having is that it's playing the animation very slowly, and that's because FPS has been left out of the equation. So let's close this and go into MonoDevelop, And what we'll do is we'll take the animation time, which is right here, and we're going to say animation time plus equals, let's see, wait a minute. Let's make sure that we have this right. Anim time, let's see, divided by frames per second. That's right. So now if we save this, go into Unity, let's hit the space bar so we can see this and play. And now if we press that, you'll see that it's playing the animation and then stops whenever the car stops. Perfect. Now the only thing that we need to do at this point is we need to refine it by adding the rest of our animations. So we need to add in the drive left and the drive right, and making sure that that is set in the reverse as well. And then we also need to set up our one-off animation, which is going to be our explosion. And we're going to go ahead and set all of that up next.